Doesn't anybody stay in one place anymore? It would be so fun to see.
Welcome to the very first podcast, if you will. Just a bit of a recording, really, about my life in general. Nothing special. This will be the first in a series of recordings, which I call The Last 5 Years. Well, I just had my 29th birthday the other day, and I just want to reflect on my life in the last 5 years, as I'm sure is a bit interesting to know. I hope it won't bore you. This won't really touch on the details much, as this is the first time I'll do this. This will probably be just an overview of what my life has been for the last 5 years. And you might be wondering, why the accent? Well, I will explain shortly. Well, where should I begin? Or how should I begin? You know, life is crazy. It never turns out the way you planned. But you know, traffic is traffic. You go where life takes you. I could trace all the way back to 2007, about 8 years ago when my father had an opportunity to come to New Zealand. And what came along with it is the hope of establishing a new life on this part of the world. Around the time, I was still in college, and I wasn't really particularly thrilled with that idea. I was so idealistic and I never had plans going to another country, because basically I will be leaving my comfort zones. But it happened. We eventually got permanent residency and I had to come here. There was no stopping it. But it was not until the winter of 2010, I mean New Zealand winter, which runs from June to August, exactly the 1st of July 2010, when the Cathay Pacific plane that departed from Hong Kong landed in Auckland. Prior to this, it was actually a 6-hour layover in Hong Kong. So there I was, reunited with my parents and my sister after 3 years. It was in the middle of winter, and just as I stepped out of the airport, I thought there was a centralized external air conditioning. It was so cold. The very first time I felt that kind of cold, which straight away reminded me that I'm in a different country. So from dry and wet seasons, I now have to embrace a four-season climate, which by the way is a welcome experience for me. You know, the freezing winter cold, the falling autumn leaves, the beautiful spring where flowers bloom, and of course, the very hot summer. But the very first few months and years have been like winter, the proverbial winter. So many challenges and they overwhelm me. So many difficulties, from finding a decent job to coming to terms with daily life, family, personal, and all that sort of thing. In terms of finding a job, I will probably elaborate on that more on the next podcast or recording, if you will. Well, New Zealand, what can I say? It is a beautiful country, and that is an understatement. It's really a different world out here. Um, Life has changed forever 5 years ago when I first arrived. You know, the adjustments I had to make, the changes I had to embrace and continue to embrace. In the beginning, there were times when I wanted to give up and walk away and go back home because circumstances were too much for me. I had quarter life crisis and family issues, and I didn't really have friends to turn to. It was such a dark, depressing phase for me. It was such difficult times, and luckily, I discovered photography and somehow made it an outlet. And poetry as well. Well, I love art, literature, and all that stuff, having an English literature degree. Eventually, things were a bit better. I felt better, and then I started driving. I got my New Zealand driver's license. Oh yeah, I got a car because it's easy to get a car in here as long as you have a job. Things were pretty alright. I was able to afford things that I couldn't afford if I was back home. I've seen and felt real snow, and I've seen beautiful landscapes, places. Fast forward 5 years later, I seem to have adjusted and have now embraced, finally, this new life, this major life detour, this major life change. In fact, I don't want to look back anymore. There is only moving forward. One of the best things I've experienced is meeting different people, different backgrounds and nationalities. It's amazing how different nationalities converge and learn to coexist. It's really an amazing experience. It's like seeing the world. Looking back, I'm proud of what I've achieved and overcome. This year we'll be getting our New Zealand citizenship, and that would really be a life milestone. I'll talk about that next time. And yeah, about the accent, I guess it's just a natural phenomenon that after spending some time and interacting with Kiwis, I was able to emulate the accent a bit, and I don't think there's any other better explanation for that. And I also have a lot of funny stories to tell next time. So thank you for listening, and until next time, good evening from the Southern Hemisphere.